Eric Mwade. What I'm going to be doing in this video is trying to answer a question as regards an Indian stock, and that's the name of the stock. And on this chart that was sent to me via YouTube, this looks like you are using a weekly chart here, and you are using an RSI period of 26. So that's slightly different from the way I look at my charts, but I'll try my best to use your chart to try and make some observations. So just trying to answer your question here. Now, first off is, the question is, if we had used this red line here, this line you draw here, for uniformity to get out of the stock, we would have got out here, which would be, as the question is raised, would be well off the high. So the highs is somewhere close to 600. If you use the method here of getting out here at the break point, then you'd be getting out somewhere about 480. So well off the high. So that's the question is, looks like uniformity could have got you out of the stock a little bit late. And all I can say is that that could be the case. And I don't think there's any system that is perfect. So we have to relax a little bit and understand that we are using technical analysis to try and narrow down our mistakes as much as possible. I believe you're never going to find one that is ideal, but you can keep adjusting your strategy until you find one that works most of the time. Now, right off the bat, the one thing I would say in drawing this red line here, which is accurate, there's nothing wrong with this red line because it connects the lows throughout this period here, is I would have probably have drawn it slightly different, and I'll show you why. Mine would have come somewhere there, which would have given you an earlier exit point because of this uniform activity here, back to the line, uniform activity, back to the line. The reason why would have gotten you out at about 500 in an ideal world. Would I have done that? I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay, but I'm just saying the reason why is because if you draw the line this way, you see that uniform activity here below the blue line back above it gave you that short-term entry point here. Uniform activity also in this period here gave you these entry points here for a rebound. So I would have drawn my line. Sometimes I draw my line through the lows so I can try and see whether I can get an earlier exit point. I hope that makes sense. In other words, my line would have been drawn slightly different, and again I would have drawn it through the lows, here, here, and here. So my line would have been giving you a sell point earlier. Okay, so let's just say that I draw the line the way you drew the line, which is fine because I still get out of the stock somewhere here, right? Which is this break point here. Nothing wrong with that. You might be out of the stock or out of a market at that point and hope that you have gotten out at this point and did not, which is, seems like you're losing a lot, but at least you're not trading the market blindly, okay? And you're not going to find the system to always be perfect. But I want to show you something about the uniformity that still works on this chart. If we go back to the previous breakpoint, which was this high in 2007, before high of 2007 about 650, you see the breakpoint on the RSI took place here. So we got a breakpoint on the RSI from these highs here before this big drop. All right, so we take our breakpoint here, draw a straight line, you can draw it like that, and you can see it gets very close to that high. So it would have given you a signal close to that high of 600. Now I can adjust that same chart because all this needs some adjustment and connect the lows, bring that line slightly lower. So we are connecting the lows here and that low, draw a straight line. Now remember, once you get used to the system, it's very simple. You're doing it very quickly on the fly. You don't waste too much time. you get a lot of information without too much fundamental analysis of why the market is behaving the way it's behaving. So you see, with a slight adjustment, you get the breakpoint here, which was telling you that was the high there. So in hindsight, use the previous trading history of a stock to tell you when it turned negative, which was this from the highs there, which was this breakpoint. Draw a straight line. You see it connects perfectly at the sell point somewhere here under about 550, which is, you know, okay, because that gives you a perfect line on when to get out of that stock. Yes, you didn't get out at the very last highest trading point, but you got out when you saw the turn point in the RSI here. So that's one way that you would have adjusted your reasoning, because sometimes you don't have to use one line. You can try and understand what the stock is trying to do by using a couple of lines to understand that. So here in this particular example, had you gone back and on your charts considered that line there from the previous breakpoint in 2007, would have given you the high there. Not too much adjustment. Now the one thing I would like to mention here is, while I was looking at this chart, I noticed that if you draw this red line here, so there was an extension of the stock, broke out above the line there. Later on it comes and touches that line with uniform activity. So your point number E was a nice entry point there. Alright, so we see that the system works even on finding rebounds, and also just for the sake of another line connecting the highs. So connecting that high and that high gives you an entry point here on the way up, which is this entry point here, and it also gives you the next rebound, which is now, right now, which is here, which is this area here of about 440. It seems like the stock wants to bounce because it is holding above this line when you extend it like that. So lots of information here. So far we are only looking at the RSI. Let's try and change and take a look at the price, and we are trying to see how much we could have adjusted our reasoning to try and get this high here. Okay, so if you go back to the previous price action, now not considering the RSI, we can draw a line here, right there, which gives you a sell point on the stock there before it had this drop. Okay, so this is a sell point there. We draw a straight line, and you can see it goes through the high here, which was confirmed as resistance because the stock could not hold above that. And so once it finds resistance here and starts turning back, that's a sell point, would be at a price of about 550 again. You can test this break point here by going back on the same line. So we're taking this line here and we are going to extend it backwards. So the best analysis is always going to make sense going forward and going backwards. And we see here that this line makes sense because it gives you previous support points on the stock. So multiple levels of support point on the stock there. It was also support somewhere here. And you can also see that it gives you the eventual sell point on the stock. So if you got out here in 2007, you saved yourself from a lot of this pain coming from this move lower here. So we see that this line here does make a lot of sense even when you go backwards. So that's one way to take a look at that. Now we can also draw this a different way. Let me use a different color here. Let's take a look at the break point. So there was a trend break here. Maybe draw it some slightly different. There was a break point here in 2007 from this nice move here. So there was this very nice move upwards here. There was a trend. Once we broke the trend somewhere here, we draw a straight line like that. And this new line, let me take that off so we can draw this. I'm just trying to show you that there's more than one way to skin this cat, and see whether we can get the line drawn properly here. Remember, I'm doing this on the fly, so there was a breakpoint there. Extend that line, and you can see even this line makes a lot of sense because it gives you support levels here, gives you support level there, and then once you broke down from that level there was this massive drop. So that line makes a lot of sense, and you can see even here it became resistance. So you can also use the price to try and determine when to get out of a position. So this position, even though you claim here, which is correct, that this was not giving you a good signal, but you can see if you combine with the price action, you could have probably started looking at this as a sell point. And also remember, I said I would have adjusted it to draw it something like that. So you would have got your 2 points. RSI telling you probably time to get out. The stock is moving below 69.10 here, and you got multiple price level resistances here coming from this line and the previous line, which was somewhere around there. And so in conclusion here, let's take a look at a few other things. We've already talked about this could be where the stock finds some type of rebound here, which would make a lot of sense because it's now from the previous buy point. We've come all the way back and bouncing off the same line. So this is where you'd expect it to find some type of support somewhere here. So at the current price, which is about 440. That's one way to take a look at that. So I would not be surprised to see the stock moving higher. Also, I noticed that you can also draw previous entry point on the way up, which was this buy point here, somewhere here, and draw a straight line from there, which makes a lot of sense because you can see here once we broke below that, stock went down. Eventually we would find resistance here. It tried to break out here, was struggling. Eventually it had a nice run after it held above that level, and now trying to hold the same level. So maybe somewhere around here this has been a line where the stock has been making decisions, so maybe it could bounce from here. That's another way to take a look at that. Also, I noticed that now if you go to this other chart here, which is the current monthly chart, so monthly chart, we're using 14 as our RSI, and what I just want to share with you here is I noticed that the RSI on the monthly is trading at 74. That tells me this is a very powerful stock since the RSI is above 69.10. Whenever an instrument is trading above 69.10, and I have videos explaining why this is powerful, you'll find that the stock has momentum. So I would use this monthly closing high here as a breakout entry point. If it breaks out above that previous monthly closing high of about 4 months ago, then that would be confirmation of a new move beginning in the stock, as long as the RSI holds above 69.10. Eric Moade, good luck, peace, and blessings.